welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lilly.
And I'm Sara.
And today we're taking another step on our journey to the center of the Discworld.
Yes.
I lulled you into a false sense of security, didn't I? I haven't done that for a minute.
I have been waiting for the other shoe to drop.
You're welcome. But before we discuss Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett, Sara, what's something good that happened recently?
Something good that happened recently is that I have not worn a bra in like a week, basically.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, part of that has been that I've been sick and that I just don't feel like being presentable.
Less fuck yeah.
But also, it's just really nice to not wear a bra. So that's my good thing.
I'm sorry that you have to be ill to experience that joy.
I mean, I don't have to be ill to experience that joy. I just generally want to be a little more presentable.
Gross.
Like when I leave the house on dog walk, for example.
You know, they invented this great thing called sweatshirts.
Yes, I do know that. That is indeed what I am taking refuge in.
Well, my good thing is that I've been watching Bee and Puppy Cat, which is a cute animated TV show. That's not the good thing. My good thing is that I said to my husband, you know, this one character just makes me think of watching Sailor Moon when I was a kid. And then I looked it up, and her voice is motherfucking Sailor Moon! I nailed it, Sara!
I'm very impressed.
I have not watched, like, OG 90s Sailor Moon, not that reboot shit. I have not watched that in so long. But something about her character's name is Toast. Toast's voice just hit me right in the brainstem.
Apparently, Sailor Moon's voice actress just stuck in your psyche.
That does not actually surprise me if you say it out loud like that.
I mean, didn't she stick in the psyche of basically every young girl of a certain age?
Amen. Anyway, the good thing was my like called shot, boom, swish, nothing but net, nailing it on the first try.
That's always such a nice feeling. Like, I recognize this and I get it.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize I got it right away, but I'm saying that counts.
Oh, it totally counts. It totally counts.
So what are we drinking tonight?
I decided that it felt like a red wine night.
Oh, me too.
Wednesdays.
Yeah. Mine's out of a box that my friend sent to me because she drank all of my wine last week.
Well, that was very nice of her to send you a replacement box of wine.
It was. How about you? You drinking out of a box tonight?
Mine is not out of a box tonight because my box wine is still white and not white. My box wine is still pink.
Gross.
It's a rosé.
Yeah, it's too cold for rosé.
I mean, it's not actually all that cold here, but somehow today felt like a red wine day. I don't know, it just did. Like that was the vibe that today gave off.
I'm going to say it's because of the holidays.
Probably.
Well, have you read anything lately? Because I sure haven't.
I actually have started doing a buddy read with a friend of mine of a book called Three Mages and a Margarita.
Ooh, that does sound fun.
Which is an urban fantasy novel. It is a lot of fun, but it's really weird because the way that we're doing this buddy read is that we're reading 2 chapters a day.
Oh.
So that like we can read basically the same thing at roughly the same time. And that's so not how I generally read books that it's a really strange experience.
Yeah.
Like if I weren't doing this buddy read, I probably would have just binge read the book, which is what I normally do with books that I like because it's really good. Like I'm having fun with it. But instead, I'm at chapter 14, which is like halfway through, and I can only read, 2 chapters a day or thereabouts. So just a different experience, but a good book.
Well, kudos and have fun with your buddy read.
Thank you. I will. This is the first time I've done a buddy read, actually. I don't generally do them.
I've read books.
I mean, you don't count.
No, not for you. Obviously, not for you. I've had a friend recommend a book right after she read it, and then I read it, and then we talk about it, which I would consider a buddy read because it's close enough that we can talk about it pretty fresh. But I guess that's not actually what that means.
Yeah, I've done that too. I don't count that as a buddy read. I think a buddy read is specifically, at least the way that I understand the phrase from like book Twitter, is like you're reading the same book at the same time. Now, whether you're doing it quite as strictly as we are, like, I don't know if that's always the case, but I do think there has to be that element of like you start the book at the same time.
I am going to disagree with you, partly because fuck Twitter, and partly because I would say the point of a buddy read is so that you have someone to talk about the book with.
I mean, sure.
Isn't that the purpose?
That doesn't change the fact that when you say, let's do a buddy read to someone, you're not saying, I'm going to read this book, and then if I like it, I'm going to recommend it to you, and you'll read it too. You're saying, let's read this book together.
Okay, I would say that that is the like weird, strict version of a buddy read. But if I read a book with the pure intent to talk about it with a friend, like a specific friend, that's a buddy read.
Okay, I won't disagree with you there, but like
it's the camaraderie aspect that matters, not the timing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to a certain extent. I do think that there does need to be some kind of, if not overlap, then at least like close timing.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, when you say I'm doing a buddy read with someone, like that phrasing implies that you're reading it at the same time.
Well, what's the difference between a buddy read and a book club?
I think they're basically the same thing. It's just that a book club tends to be a little stricter in like discussion, aspect afterwards.
All right. Well, I guess by your definition, I've never done a buddy read, and I'll just have to live with that. I hope you feel good about yourself.
By my definition, you've done lots of buddy reads.
No, you already said I don't count.
Yeah.
Podcast read is specifically not a buddy read. That's a completely different thing.
I mean, completely different while managing to be exactly the same.
The exact same thing, yeah. Speaking of the exact same thing, hey, Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett. I done fucked up.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me earlier, and I was astonished.
This is not the first Discworld book that I haven't read. I think Eric was also new to me.
Okay, but Eric is kind of like that doesn't count.
I agree, thank you. But this is the first one that I read where I was like, holy shit, what was I doing? Well, how did I skip this book? I don't know. Well, I know is because I would just roll into Barnes & Noble with some pocket money in my pocket. Pocket money in my pocket?
Allowance money in your pocket?
Yeah, in high school, and just grab whatever books were on the shelf for Discworld. And they didn't have all of them always at the same time. And even if they did, they weren't in order. So it was complete chaos. But I'm pretty upset that I hadn't read this book before. It was really good.
I'm kind of astonished that you hadn't read this book before. It's not necessarily one of my favorites just because I don't tend to gravitate to the Night Watch books, but it is a very good book. And if I had realized that you hadn't read it before, I would have made you rectify that sooner.
I mean, we're working on it.
we are working on it.
I have weird gaps in my Discworld readership because I would just roll into Barnes & Noble and buy whatever was on the shelf. And then also, I forgot that libraries were a thing in high school. So if I ran out of money, I stopped reading Discworld. I do not claim to be a smart woman.
I feel like I failed as the older cousin.
Well, Discworld also has this weird thing where at one point I insisted on reading them in order and then got really mad at Color of Magic. And so I was like, fuck this. I'm going to read the books I want to.
Again, I feel like I failed as the older cousin.
Well, we're fixing it now.
We are fixing it now.
Oh my God, though. This book had so many of the things that I really love about Discworld. And I know we just said that about Masquerade. Maybe we've just like finally hit Pratchett's stride.
I think that that's definitely part of it. This book has a lot of things that I like about Discworld. I agree. But it's really interesting that it also brings forward one of the things that I feel really how to phrase this. I have really mixed thoughts about, namely, Vimes super, super racist. And like the text calls him out on that. Like the text makes it clear that that's not a good thing, but he still manages to be a really compelling, relatable protagonist. And I find it's really interesting the way that his racism doesn't detract from that, the way that like that major character flaw would in basically any other book.
So I would like to bring up the concept of the schlemiel and the schlemazel. One is the person who is spilling the soup, and the other one is the person who is getting soup spilled upon them. These are Yiddish words for whether you are the butt of the joke or not. And I am bringing up the Yiddish words purely because there are golems in this book. Is that racist? I hope not. Golems that's a Jewish mythology thing, right? I don't think I'm wrong.
They are a Jewish mythology thing, yes.
Yeah. And that was also how it was taught to me in humor class, so I'm going to stick with it. But I think there is a huge difference between Vimes being the butt of the joke for being racist and so clearly stupid about it, and we're supposed to laugh at him for how wrong he is because of his preconceived notions, versus, for example, some of Pratchett's earlier works, where we're supposed to laugh at foreign cultures for having funny words in them, and that's just that don't go anywhere. They don't float.
I mean, I agree with you. And like that's part of why I think Vimes's racism is not okay, but like tolerable, because obviously the text is making fun of him for it.
Yeah.
But still, I think that it's interesting that he manages to be such a compelling point of view character despite that. Because I think that in a lot of other books, even when you're not supposed to like the racism, and like the racism is still the butt of the joke, that does detract from being able to sympathize with the main character or with the character, whoever the racist character is.
It's not just that Vimes he is racist, just feels like a very strong statement, but I don't think there's another one for it.
I mean, that is just the truth. He is racist.
I think why I hesitate to use that phrase is because he gets over it by the end of the book. And I think that is what's appealing to a privileged bitch Lilly reader. The idea that you can fuck up and still grow and be better.
I mean, I agree that I think that part of the appeal of Vimes is seeing him grow and improve from where he starts out in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of the series. Like he is constantly confronting his biases in that respect, but he's also constantly pretty racist against each new species that he comes across in each book.
And that is uncomfortable on one level, but also, isn't it nice to think that people with instinctual biases can learn away from them?
Sure. I mean, like, it's great. I love, like, I'm not saying that his character growth is bad or that I don't like Vimes. I'm just saying that I think that, like, well, I don't know. I guess maybe we're arguing in circles now. Because yes, I think that his character growth is part of what makes him relatable.
And that's why he is sympathetic. He makes mistakes. He's wrong, but he learns from that and grows. And don't we all want to be the person who can learn from our mistakes and grow? And don't you hope that every person you encounter is the kind of person who can learn from their mistakes and grow?
That's very true.
I think we wish that every racist was Vimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree there.
And it's still not, you're right, it's still not great. It's still uncomfortable. His prejudices are not good. But the fact that he is always willing to confront his own biases and adapt.
Well, I don't know if he's willing to confront his biases. I think that he grows despite himself.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think it's maybe extra uncomfortable that he's a racist cop.
Yeah.
But he does not let his racism interfere with his law enforcement. And I think that is what gives me such a soft spot for him.
I mean, he's a great character and I love Vimes. I just think that it's worth interrogating in this day and age. Like, what about him we like? And why do we like him?
I mean, yeah. Don't you wish that every law enforcement officer, when introduced with a possible miscreant, went, hey, could I be wrong about this situation?
Yes. I mean, I wish that more cops were like Vimes. I wish more cops were like Carrot, too.
Oh, see, we're going to have to have a big discussion about Carrot later and my big ol' crush on him. But I think Vimes is like the wishful, dirty side. Was that a real sentence? Did that make any sense? You know what I meant.
He's like the wishful, dirty side.
Yeah. Humanity is bad. It's fine. It's not fine. But there are portions of us who can learn and grow.
He's definitely the bad cop to Carrot's good cop, but a good bad cop.
Yeah, I mean,
if that makes sense.
He is the quote unquote bad cop. But okay, Vimes is not throwing anyone in jail because of their species.
No. I mean, he's very, the thing about Vimes is he's very like even-handed. Like, he is racist, but he doesn't let that affect how he does his job per se.
He is internally racist, which is still a problem.
Yeah.
But because we get to see inside of his head, that's why we see that. And we still see him giving everyone an even chance.
Yeah.
Which is an opportunity we don't have for every single law enforcement officer to see inside their head. And B, thank God for that.
Yes.
Can we talk about my big ol' crush on Carrot now?
Yes, we can talk about your big ol' crush on nice guy Carrot. Boring Carrot.
We just had this conversation too. You're not a big fan of the big squishy guys, but...
No, I like Carrot's lovely. I mean, like, he's a fine character. He's a fine person.
He's a better cop.
He's a better cop. Oh yeah. I mean, like objectively, Carrot is superior. I just find him boring. He's so nice. We have had this conversation.
Extremely recently, ironically, in the monster fucking episode, which is not something Carrot does in this book, but I would pay to watch that.
I mean, technically, okay, by our definition, in the monster fucking episode, he's not doing any monster fucking, but he does date a werewolf.
Yeah, and we said werewolves are the gray area. Also, I actually would not assume that he's the one doing the fucking between him and Angua.
He's also probably not doing the fucking or being fucked while she's in her werewolf form.
Right. That's why it's not monster fucking.
Yes.
Also, I'm not actually sure they're sleeping together. That's not confirmed. I don't think that's something Pratchett would ever tell us.
No. Isn't there a scene in the first book where they get together, and I can't remember what it is, but like they're in his room and it's like morning and she like wakes up or something and is just wearing a sheet. Like, I thought it was pretty heavily implied that they had slept together.
Oh shit, I don't remember that at all. But I hope that's true.
I could be completely misremembering, like I'm not willing to bet money on it.
Well, the book doesn't say they're not sleeping together, so I think we should assume that they are.
I think that there's a scene in an earlier book where it's very strongly implied that they have slept together.
Also, I love both of them so much. I love Carrot and I love Angua and I love their relationship. And they're both kind of a little, well, Carrot's not hesitant because that's part of what makes Carrot so wonderful. But Angua is very reasonably hesitant, and that just makes me like her more. And Sarah, this is the romance book I need in my life.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh,
I wouldn't go that far at all. But I do like the relationship, and I like the way that Angua has some very reasonable fears about it.
extremely reasonable. She is very much not sold on them being together. And that's good and fine, but she's enjoying being with him while she is, which is also good and fine and excellent, I might say.
Yeah.
Also, I love Angua. I might love Angua more than Carrot, but that's hard. I don't know if I can say that. Can I just love them both equally?
I mean, you can love them both equally.
Thank you.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing stopping you.
Carrot is such a lunk. Like, there's nothing. I mean, that's not true. There's not nothing going on in his head. He is just so literal that there is no poison in his head.
Yeah, I mean, and we've discussed in earlier episodes how Carrot is actually really, really smart.
Yeah.
He just, like, chooses to ignore all of the stuff, like all of the nonsense, the garbage nonsense. And I think he weaponizes his reputation as being this very slow person in a lot of respects.
Probably.
I mean, I think you see it with the scene with the dwarf who hasn't paid his taxes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes. So, something else that happens in this book is there's a discussion of monarchy, and there are two candidates. One of them is our good old boy Carrot, and the other one is my spirit animal, Nobby Nobbs.
Oh, Nobby. Oh, Nobby.
He's a goblin, right? Like, I can say that. He's not in the text a goblin because he is technically human, but the fact that he is human has to have been tested. That's how goblin-like he is.
He has a paper to say so. Yes.
And goblins aren't a race in Discworld, and so I feel safe saying, like, no, that's a little goblin man.
Yeah, I mean, that's never how I've interpreted it, but I play less D&D than you do, so I can see why you would go for goblin.
Oh.
With him.
I was thinking more like Goblin Core, which is more of a Tumblr thing, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm also on Tumblr less than you are.
So the city is faced with two theoretical royal options, and the guilds choose Nobby because they think he's much more easily manipulated than the extremely genuine Carrot. They're correct, but also Nobby, my man, was like, fuck that.
Nobby's great. I really enjoy seeing more of him in this book.
I can't believe I haven't read this book before.
I know.
Like, everyone I love has such great moments.
Yeah, Nobby has some really fun moments where he's hobnobbing.
A great pun, by the way. Nobby Nobbs is a knob.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. It is a good pun. But yeah, he's in this situation just being Nobby. And then when he learns that they want him to potentially be ruler, he's like, oh, fuck this, I'm out.
He'll take all of the fawning, but if they actually expect anything from him, he's like, nah.
I think he literally jumps out of a window, doesn't he?
I believe so. But I would like to point out...
#spoilers.
That's not that.
It's not really a spoiler.
No. We're not talking about anything really important. I'd say there's like a big mystery in the book, and it does not involve Nobby and his heritage. But what I think is fascinating is the decision-making process that these guild masters go through when they realize that there is an opportunity to create a new leader for Ankh-Morpork. And they have these two options. One is this extremely virtuous, genuine, excellent cop. And the other one is Nobby Nobbs. I love Nobby Nobbs with my whole heart, but they 100% chose him for bad reasons. Because they knew they could manipulate him, and they would never be able to manipulate Carrot.
I mean, I think if you're a guild master trying to surreptitiously take control of the city, that's a good reason.
You still have a little bit of a cold, and it sounds like you said guild bastard, and I love that. I'm keeping it in.
They are guild bastards too.
Yeah. No, I mean it makes sense. It sucks, but it makes sense. And it makes you love both of them more because they are puppets who are not allowing themselves to be puppeteered. And I really liked everything about this book, Sarah.
It's a good book.
Oh my god, and we got the golems. The golems show up in later books, and I love them immensely. And I didn't realize that they were introduced earlier. Like, this is a kind of a huge gap, and a lot of things make sense to me now.
Yeah, I guess we do see like Dorful, for example, in later books, don't we?
Yeah. And making money is a huge going postal, kind of like making money, they're a huge component in, which is those are my two favorite Discworld novels. As much as I loved this book, I'm still saying going postal and making money are my favorites.
Yeah, I think it's really neat the way that Terry Pratchett builds on his earlier novels in a way that you don't necessarily recognize until you're rereading the series or until you're familiar with the series, but going back and fixing those gaps.
Yes. So I mentioned that the guild masters see an opportunity to create a new power in Ankh-Morpork because Vetinari is indisposed. And we've spoken before how much we love Lord Vetinari, how much maybe Sara loves Lord Vetinari.
I love Vetinari. I have a great inordinate fondness for Vetinari.
All right, you can love Vetinari and I can love Carrot, and that can say too much about both of us.
Yes, it probably does say a lot about us. It's true. But Vetinari, I think, is particularly good in this book because we get to see him scheming in a way that we haven't necessarily seen him scheme in a lot of the previous novels. And he's always we don't necessarily recognize until later on that he's been 5 steps ahead of the game, but he has been 5 steps ahead of the game the entire time. And I just think that's neat.
Absolutely, 100%. I do think it's implied pretty early on that he knows what's going on because there's a mystery. What's happening to Vetinari? Which we're not going to go into because I don't want to do a spoiler tag. But it's pretty obvious that he knows.
I do think it's a little bit of a spoiler to say that he knows.
I think that's in the first quarter of the book.
Okay.
And that's what I'm going to call clear and fair. It's pretty early that you find out. He says something like, well, okay, I won't say what it is, but he gives a hint to Vimes in like almost the first scene with him.
Yeah, okay.
There's another character who we haven't spoken about before. We have spoken extensively about Tolkien dwarves and how everyone is a coward and doesn't give female dwarves beards. Except for Pratchett.
Except for Pratchett.
He fucking follows through. All of the like gender bendy dwarves that we've always wished for in Tolkien adaptations, Pratchett delivers.
Yeah. And this is the first book that we are introduced to Cheery, who is essentially the forensic specialist, or she comes on as the forensic specialist for the Night Watch, or for the Watch. And she's a dwarf, but she kind of goes against all of the dwarvish customs by presenting as female, because even the female dwarves up until now have generally been very masculine. Like, you can't tell the difference between male and female dwarves in Discworld, and Pratchett has some like jokes about they have a very difficult courtship because of that, because they don't even know the difference, etc., etc., etc. And Cheery changes that.
I think it's fascinating because she's not the first female dwarf. She's the first female presenting dwarf. And so we watch her, I'm going to use the word transition from male presenting. She uses male pronouns at the beginning. She introduces herself. She might not actually say, "Oh, I'm Cheery, I go by he, him."
I was going to say she doesn't introduce herself with male pronouns. The text does, because the text is assuming that dwarves use male pronouns by default.
Right.
And Vimes assumes that.
I am accepting the text as the general cultural situation. And she doesn't correct anybody. She's just like, okay, this is fine for now. And then we see her friendship with Angua. And Angua knows that she is biologically female. And Angua has a conversation with her. Again, I don't think that's a spoiler. This is pretty early.
I don't think it's a spoiler. Yeah.
She has a conversation with her like, hey, I won't tell anyone. Which, good Angua, correct answer. But I know, like, I can tell. And Cherry is so relieved. And Angua gives her makeup and nail polish and dresses and sticks up for her in social situations and professional situations where Cherry is choosing to present as the gender she wants to. And that's really wonderful.
Yeah. I do kind of side-eye all of the people, all of the trans exclusionists who like think that Pratchett wouldn't have supported trans people because like trans people were after his time. What I'm not that they were at all, but like that's their wild reasoning. Like you know, this is the things are woke now and they weren't when Pratchett was writing, whatever. But like, have they not read Cherry's storyline? Like,
I'm amazed that you side-eye them because I just give them two big old middle fingers. They can suck my big old lady cock. Fuck them.
That too. But like, I just don't understand how someone can so misinterpret Pratchett's writing.
They read what they want to read.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
His actual text has nothing to do with their opinions.
That's fair.
Say what you will. We will say what we will about Pratchett, frankly. He doesn't get everything right.
He doesn't get everything right.
But sometimes he nails it. And obviously Cherry is not trans, but there are absolutely some experiences that she goes through, like, you know, gender presentation and social transitioning. That's not completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think the social transitioning that she does is comparable.
And the way that she meets other dwarves who always wished they could wear nail polish and wear makeup and present more femininely.
But also the way that she experiences discrimination in her community from the dwarves who don't approve of what she's doing because she is going against the general culture.
So one of the huge aspects of this book, Feet of Clay, go figure, is golems.
Yes.
And the exploration of what a golem is and who they are. And something that we read about in the text is how they must have a master and they must follow orders. And that's, I'm going to say the word interesting very long and drawn out and skeptically. Interesting. I mean, are golems slaves? They are.
Yes. I mean, so yes, I think in the text they're essentially slaves. I don't know enough about golems in Jewish mythology to like figure out how that compares to the original like mythological depiction, if that makes sense, and to see what exactly Pratchett is playing with there.
I agree with you completely, but I think how they are on the page of this book, I don't know. They have a master and they must follow orders. I think really what makes it hard for me is that as someone from the United States, the concept of slavery is so very much tied with racism, and it's my understanding that that's not as closely connected in other countries. And so I really don't know. Like, I don't think golems are black. Really, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to a certain extent, you're bringing your own baggage here. Like, I think that they're slaves, but I don't think it's a black correlation. And I think it's different if you read it as someone not from the US, where those two ideas are so inextricably intertwined.
That's all. That's all I was going with that.
Yeah.
Just it took me a minute to like be reading this book and think, well, actually, golems are from Jewish mythology, so really I should not be associating them with African Americans at all. It was almost the exact soundbite that went through my head, and you should judge me for that.
I don't worry, I am judging you for that.
My internal voice does sound like a newscaster. It's all right. So Vimes might have his problems with race, but he has always been pretty tuned in to classist issues. And there are some very excellent quotes about classism in Ankh-Morpork, but isn't that just London?
It's basically London.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes about the classist divides in Discworld, but obviously in the real world in general, is on page 83 of my version of Feet of Clay. When Nobby had gone, Vimes reached behind the desk and picked up a faded copy of Twerp's Peerage, or, as he personally thought of it, the Guide to the Criminal Classes. You wouldn't find slum dwellers in these pages, but you would find their landlords. And, while it was regarded as pretty good evidence of criminality to be living in a slum, for some reason, owning a whole street of them merely got you invited to the very best social occasions. When Pratchett is on, he is on.
And that's some of the fundamentals of this book. The upper class manipulating politics to benefit them. What does that sound like? Gosh, as the youngest generation, I have invented sex and political nonsense. Those were quotes. I'm not just being shitty.
They were quotes of?
There's some quote that says each generation thinks they invented sex.
Oh.
So I was playing off of that.
Okay.
It was funny. You looked at me like I was spouting nonsense.
Yes, I did. I'm still a little too sick to catch references like that. I'm going to blame it on my illness.
It's a Heinlein quote.
When you said the quote, I understood, I recognized it.
Yeah, so maybe it was my fault for just being too oblique.
It was a little too oblique, at least for my ill mind.
Oh, that is an implication.
we're gonna blame it on the illness. It wasn't the illness.
Oh, okay. Can I quote you for saying you have an ill mind?
Well, that would be taking my words out of context, so no.
Fine.
The face you're making.
I want to because I want to tease you, but I can't because casting women as insane when they aren't is just not a good look.
I mean, you're welcome to do whatever you want. It's fine. I know it's coming from a place of love.
And that's a power I would never
abuse.
That's the word.
Not you.
No. Well, Sarah, do you think someone could start at this book in the Discworld?
I don't think so. I think you would be really confused about some of the relationships between the characters in the Watch, and I don't. It's a good story, but I don't think it's a good starting point.
These are not in order.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the Watch books.
Do you want? I mean, I can tell you them because I have the list of books by the Discworld books at the start of my copy.
I don't think that are those in order.
Yes,
I've
they
never
are.
trusted those.
They are in order. We had this discussion on air once. They are in order.
I'm still mad about it. Well, then the list I'm looking at is probably right. Guards, and then men-at-arms.
Yes, that is correct.
These covers are not something I've ever seen before. I'm assuming this is Angua, and she looks like She-Ra. And I am a little into it.
Are those the UK covers? They must be the UK covers with art by not Paul Kidby, but like Josh Kirby or somebody.
I don't know why you're asking me like I know that answer.
Well, presumably you're on Wikipedia or something that would tell you.
Discworldreadingorder.azurewebsites.net/The Watch.
Okay. That is not
Wikipedia gave me a list of characters. That was not helpful.
Well, you went to the wrong Wikipedia page.
I Googled The Watch Discworld, and that's what it brought me to.
You should have just Googled Discworld.
Well, this is why people listen to us and don't do their own Googling.
Clearly, you should listen to me and not do your own Googling.
Well, I think the end of the answer is, unlike the Witches series, where the very, very first ones are actually kind of bad, and Death, the early Death books are pretty bad too.
Just Mort.
That's the early Death book.
Yes, but you said books plural.
Okay, fine. I would say that if you enjoy the concept of Sam Vimes and The Watch and classism and all of that stuff, not enjoying the idea of classism, obviously, you know what I mean, exploring that from a sympathetic viewpoint, you should just start the Watch books from the beginning, which it looks like is Guards.
Yeah, I think that's Guards. And I really do think that you need to start from the beginning in order to understand the character development that Vimes, and to a lesser extent, all of the other characters undergo throughout the course of like the Watch series.
I would argue that Carrot actually goes through quite a bit of character development. We don't see all of it on the page, but like you said, he's somewhat manipulative with his use of tax codes in this book, and that's not something he would have done in the early books.
I disagree with you there. I think that Carrot is actually pretty consistent, and we see in, I think it's Men-at-Arms, where he's essentially the main character over Vimes. I mean, it's a Vimes book, but like he gets more page time, I think. Like we see a lot of that in his character. So I think that his character is a lot more internally consistent than Vimes is.
I think he becomes more self-aware. I think he may have done that in an earlier book, but I don't think he would have realized what he was doing.
I think that he realized what he was doing at least in Men-at-Arms.
That's not the first book. That's still character growth.
It's not. I'm not saying that there's no character growth. I'm just saying that I think Vimes's character growth is more striking.
Yeah, but Carrot is way cuter, so
I like Vimes better.
Well, we'll just have to we won't have to arm wrestle. We can just divvy them up between us.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to Carrot. Have at him. You keep him.
Oh, that's on recording now. You can never argue with me again.
I mean, I can't argue, but I'm not going to argue that I want Carrot as my Discworld love interest or whatever.
Nope, I don't care what you say. He's mine. Stop trying to walk it back.
He's yours. I'm not arguing that.
Sara, stop it. You already said he was mine. It doesn't matter what you say now. I have it on recording.
You do. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We're somewhere on the internet. I can't keep track of it anymore. There's a link tree somewhere. Go find us there.
Are you going to tell them how to email us? That hasn't changed.
Oh yeah, we still have a Gmail. The one steady thing in this crazy world. If nothing else, email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com and we will read it.
We might not respond in a timely manner, but we will read it.
Yeah, I didn't say we would, did I?
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We do also have a Patreon where you can support us and find our show notes and some other nonsense.
Find our show notes when we post them.
Shh.
It's been a while. Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye.